Next on our list of real estate lead generation companies by category is real estate lead generation cost of lead acquisition. And basically what that, to put that in another way, is which lead generation company is going to be most expensive per lead for you to acquire leads from. All right. This is tricky to measure because some companies like Ylopo and me, we have multiple layers that we do, and not all of our clients turn on every layer. Like we might need to add like an automated texting system, or maybe they've got an option to turn one on. Almost all these companies, every single one on my list in any category, have all these different options that you can turn on and off, and they cost different amounts of money. So your cost per lead is a little tricky for me to estimate or to figure out, because it's going to depend on which options that you turn on. However, there are definitely three people that sit at the top of the list, which is just flat out going to be the most expensive companies for you to get lead acquisition from. And I'm just going to cover those three because they're easy. There is no doubt about it, and I can explain it effectively. I will add honorable mentions at the end of this video. So first on the list, which should surprise nobody, is Zillow. I have clients that pay as much as $100 to $300 a lead with Zillow. They're far and away the most expensive in terms of acquisition. They have historically been some of the highest quality and one of the most reliable lead providers as well. That does not mean that they're universally effective, because they're not. And while I have many people that have put Zillow as part of their lead generation process, I'd say I'm 60 to 70% of the people that use them end up canceling them. And the reason is simple. It's not that they're not getting leads. It's not that they're not closing deals. It's that when they get to the end of their first year contract, and let's say they spent 30 grand with Zillow, they discover that they made 60 grand, maybe. And all it takes is one bad year where maybe the leads don't convert as well, or you're having a slightly harder time, or maybe your personal game isn't as what it should be. Because the amount of agents that I've talked to that have also spent 60 or 30 or 40 grand and then made 30 or 40 grand, I can't even count. And when you look at those numbers and you realize you're not getting enough referrals or any other reciprocal value out of the leads, and you're doing all that work to effectively pay the Zillow bill, that's when they get canceled. So they're the most expensive lead provider by far. Okay, so number one, Zillow, highest cost of lead acquisition. Number two, real estate webmasters. Again, this is a no-brainer. Okay? Real estate webmasters cost of acquisition is a little hard to define consistently, and I'll tell you why. So Real Estate Webmasters has all sorts of website products that it's delivered over time, but on average they charge somewhere between $3,000 and $15,000 for a website. That doesn't make them the most expensive providers of websites by any means. There are other people out there that are more, so, or could be more. But when you look at what you're getting, they do still provide a very complex website. It's a good website. You're not wasting your money. So there's that. But you could get a similar website for less from other providers. Okay, so that's the website side. Now they've raised their prices to charge you $500 just to have the website, which was straight up Morgan looking at how much money other people were charging for their CRMs, understanding that he had built one that was probably just as good, and saying at $300 a month I'm undercharging. So he raised his prices. Now he's $500 a month. Just to have the website live. So that's your service cost. So now you're looking at $6 grand a year, and there's no marketing in that. There's no anything. That's just to have the website. Then you have, this is where they really get you though. This is where the cost of acquisition becomes very high, because everything I've just mentioned is the setup costs. If you want to do marketing, and you want to use Real Estate Webmasters, they actually are proficient at SEO. But you're going to be adding 2 or 3 grand per month onto your bill. Like a 10-hour per month SEO agreement with them is $2,500 per month. So And take it from me, that's not that much. For that, you're going to be adding on maybe 10 area pages per month, something like that. Maybe not even that. So you're looking at a very slow but steady expansion on the site. It is effective. They can get you results, but you're looking at probably 2 or 3 years of that kind of work. So you're going to come in at $75,000 to $100,000 at a minimum to kind of start generating organic leads. So you're in the hole by, at this point, for both the cost of the website and that, you're in the hole about $150,000 to $200,000. You will get leads, and if they are SEO generated, they will obviously be higher quality than other types of leads, but you're still spending a fair amount to get them. Over time, the cost will come down, as with any SEO endeavor with somebody who knows what they're doing. So eventually, you could end up with a slightly lower cost of acquisition. Most of the people that I know that are using Real Estate Webmasters that are on the small or individual side, the little person or the small team side, are spending somewhere between 15 to 25% of GCI to have them as their website partner if they're leveraging some of their marketing services. Their PPC marketing services and stuff like that are one of the highest price points in the industry. You're going to pay anywhere from $500 to $1,000 a month just to have them manage the campaign. Plus, you have to have your budget on top of that. So you're looking at $2,000 or $3,000, $36,000 to drive traffic into the site. Again, it will work. It will capture leads for you. It's just your cost of acquisition will be very high. So it is very much on the high side. It's been a little bit complicated to unwind specifically because Real Estate Webmasters is actually, their platform is good enough that they can generate leads in a number of ways. You could drive social media traffic into that site and you're probably going to get some kind of return on that dollar. So, and they're not very friendly about distributing their data. So they're not sorting and parsing their data really cleverly in such a way that we can necessarily say, except for in a very general way, my clients have spent X amount and then realized X amount off the site. And they're definitely on the high side for that. Realtor.com. So Realtor.com is the budget version of Zillow, quite frankly. Their leads aren't quite as high quality. Maybe it's just because of the reputation of the site. I don't. But I would say that they're within maybe a 20% differentiation between Zillow and Realtor. Pricing wise, Realtor.com is slightly less aggressive than Zillow in terms of how they price out their territories. This information can change though, which is what makes it hard. And you're looking at these pricing where they're doing it on territory or zip code, and they're charging you for either exclusive or shared space on their site for these specific territories. Now, whether or not you've selected, I want that by myself, or I'm going to share it with somebody, that's hard to quantify. But as a general rule, that Realtor.com is more expensive than 9% of other providers except for these other two. Okay? They do generate a slightly higher quality lead. I would say that people firing them is on a slightly higher percentage than Zillow. I think that because leads aren't quite as strong and because their options are a little trickier and they're not doing the automated phone dump thing, they've instead acquired a company called 5 Street. They've got services that they use to distribute their leads. They've got a good solution. It's just not quite as good as the one that Zillow's got in place, and it certainly isn't as easy to track. So, and volunteer opinions about it, even though I have access to accounts, Realtor.com accounts. So it's a little bit harder to track results, but I can tell you this for sure. I think that $7,000 to $10,000 spent with Realtor.com is not going to be quite as effective as $7,000 to $10,000 spent with Zillow. And I can also say that even though you'll probably get more leads, if that makes any sense. So you'll get more of a result, more names and numbers for the same money, but not necessarily more ROI. So that definitely makes them somewhere up here, like in terms of cost of acquisition, but they're not as expensive as Zillow. So like I said, this is a little bit tough to measure. Try to put these out there. So some cost of acquisition numbers that are I'm going to do long-term ROI as a section, and you should, if you found any interest in this section, you should definitely refer to those videos, because I'm going to dig deeper into ROI with these different systems. If that's important to you, if you just want to have somebody kind of try to point you in the right direction based on what your ultimate success would be based on revenue alone, I'm going to get into it. If you found this video helpful or useful in any way, shape, or form, please do me a favor and thumbs up and leave me a comment. One last closing thought on this, though. The reason these companies are so expensive, at least Zillow and Realtor, is that the leads are the simplest to acquire and manage. So I'm going to talk next about lead generation companies with the best cost of acquisition, which might seem like a no-brainer. Let's go do that. But getting a lower cost lead oftentimes means you have to work harder to convert it. Okay, and so that is going to be very heavily dependent on who you are as an agent. Like, you can get leads for as little as $2 a piece. Lead acquisition cost is a super confusing and murky subject. And so that's why I'm doing this list. It's just because you get a cheap lead doesn't mean that you want it or that it's going to work well for you. So that's my closing thoughts on this. These guys get to charge their money, all of them, these guys, because they've been a leader for so long, and they're one of the few companies that can, over time, deliver SEO-based leads, still to this very day. And that makes them rare on this list. And just the fact that they can still do that, those leads end up, like, once you have positioning in the search engines, it does tend to stay for long periods of time. And so oftentimes you could turn off your $100,000 that you invested and then ride on the laurels of your results and consistently get returns off your historic efforts with only a minor amount of updating. Like, you could reduce a $2,500 a month budget to $1,000 easy, or $500, and then consistently get about the same amount of return. The thing is, if you're super aggressive and you want to keep increasing your returns, you have to keep making the investment. But even then, that line item is going to continue to get way more profitable, especially when you're, like, if you ever get critical mass and become a dominant site in a certain area, which some of their clients have. At that point, it's almost incalculable. Get a very high ROI, but you're looking at 3 or 4 years worth of investment to get there. So I stick by my numbers. Thanks.